Noah is a righteous man. We don't know much about his family. We know his sons' names. We don't know if they themselves were righteous. But he spent time with God, whatever that meant to Noah and to God. He's not perfect, but he's trying really hard. He hears God, and he immediately jumps in to follow God's commandments, to build this teva, this ark, to gather the animals. He does what he can. And then, of course, imagine the people around him watching him build this ark somewhere in the Middle East, giant ship. The Midrash tells us that the people around him laughed at him and said, "What are you building this thing for?" And he would share with them the prophecy that the world would be destroyed, and they continued to laugh at him. But he continues to fight against all of the odds, against all of the words that are said against him, and he builds it anyway. And of course, we all know that the disaster comes. And I was mentioning to Kazan Steve, I find it fascinating that every culture in the world, with the exception of the Aboriginals of Australia, has a flood story. And so some sort of natural disaster, some sort of event must have occurred at some point in our history as humans, that this is such an archetypical story. So the flood comes, and the disaster occurs, and the people are wiped out. And Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives are on the ark. And they're there, and eventually the rain stops, and the floodwaters begin to recede, and he sees there's hope on the horizon. And he sends out a raven, hoping for some sign of life. And the raven disappears. And then he sends the dove multiple times until she comes back with an olive branch. This is the story we all know. But you may not know that the Midrash tells us that when the ark does finally land atop a mountain, that Noah does not leave the ark. Not just because it's still wet, but he doesn't leave the ark because he says to God, "I'm not leaving here until you promise this will never happen again. I'm staying right here, I and my family. We're not rebuilding a world for you to destroy it again." And then the rainbow appears in the sky as God's promise that this will never happen again. I don't know if you saw the synagogue post on Facebook yesterday or Thursday night about Elia Cohen and Ziv Abud. You may remember they came here and spoke in June. Elia and Ziv were at the Nova Music Festival. Elia had in his pocket an engagement ring, and he intended to propose to Ziv. But of course, we know what happened that evening, that morning. They survived, Ziv under the bodies of other people. Elia was taken in as a hostage, and he spent most of his time with Alon Ohel and Elkanah Bachut. And he thought about Ziv, her hope, and the hope he had that he would see her again, that they would build a future, helped him get through the horrors that was being in captivity with Hamas. And when he was finally freed last February, he and Ziv decided they would not get engaged until all of the living hostages were released. He said as he traveled around, this is what he's doing. This is his challenge to the world, to all of the people, to the social media, to all of those voices that speak out against Israel, to those who are not accepting of the disaster that is terrorism and Hamas, that he would challenge anyone, that he and she would continue to speak out and say, we are going to make sure that no one else is going through what Elia suffered before they decide to rebuild their world. They saw the disaster, they lived through it, and they understand the Jewish ideal that saving even one life is saving an entire world. And then on Thursday, celebrating the release of all of our living hostages, Elia and Ziv got engaged to the cheering of many of their friends and family. And they walked out and they said, we succeeded. We've done it. And now it's time to rebuild the world. I am very much looking forward to putting my feet down on the soil of Israel tomorrow morning, afternoon. I'm not sure what time we land. Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it's like 4:30.
I am looking forward to being there at this time when we are rebuilding a world, and to being part of the World Zionist Congress. There will be discussions about how we rebuild Israel. There will be discussions about how we support every Jewish community around the world. This moment, this gathering of well over 1,000 people in Israel, Israelis, Jews from every country, this is our rainbow. We will be celebrating, I'm sure, engagements, weddings, children who have come out of this disaster. I'm sure, I know, although we've not been told who yet, there will be hostages and survivors and family members. And we will dance with them, and we will wish them well, and we will say, we did it. There are still people to come home. But we've saved lives, and we're rebuilding the world, much like Noah. And as we see from the Parsha, out of just a few people comes an entire world. And we'll move forward and be our own rainbow.